Hey, Justin, welcome back to our next podcast. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic, Dharam. The year is off to a very fast start, and I'm sitting here going, "Oh my gosh, March is going to be upon us very quickly." So it's 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 a little scary, to be honest with you. I'm going, it's going to be May before I know it.
I know. Before you realize you're already in 2026. No,
I
yes,
know
very
it's
good.
crazy, but no, everything is great. The year is off to a fantastic start, and I'm very excited.
Fantastic. Look, today's topic is very, very interesting, and how we can use this information, the data, available data, and artificial intelligence in a most constructive way. That's what we're going to learn today. All right. So the topic of today is data literacy for program portfolio managers in the age of artificial intelligence. Let me start my question. Why has data literacy become the unspoken prerequisite for business success in the AI-driven era? As a program manager, portfolio leader, program project leader, why should we care about it?
Well, first, this is a fantastic topic, and I think we could probably go on for many hours with this. Dharam, as we kind of talked about when this particular topic of discussion came up, I really wanted to, before I even got started, was to, all right, what exactly, at least in my mind, does data literacy mean? Because it is important to define it, and so what I came up with online that I agree with probably the most, and it's a widely common definition for those listening, is data literacy is the ability to read, work with, analyze, and communicate with data. It's a skill that empowers all levels of workers to ask the right questions of data and machines, build knowledge, make decisions, and communicate meaning to others.
Mm.
So that's a fantastic definition in my eyes. And so to truly answer your first question, Dharam, is why has data literacy become an unspoken prerequisite for business success in the AI-driven era? And as a project program leader, why should you care? Number one, as that definition said, not just a project program or portfolio leader or all the way up and down the chain of command. It is imperative, especially as we have these new tools at our fingertips, that everyone is able to understand and decipher. And as Dharam, you and I talked about before we started recording, is the most beautiful thing about this is, you and I could be looking at the same case study or set of data and come up with completely different analysis of our findings, and that's just simply based on what our background's in, what kind of things we usually look for. Perfect example. I always, when you go for a home inspection,
Yeah.
at least one of the big things that I do is, it's a small little thing, but I take my phone charger and I hook it up to my phone and I walk around and test every outlet. It's just little things that I like to do. Of course, and everybody is looking at different things. Some people will look at the walls. How's the paint look on the walls? Different things. So we all have our different little niches that we look for. And in data, it's no different, where, I've been looking at, or I've been learning a lot about business and the data literacy type or terms, and being able to find biases in data. And so when you're really looking at things in a grand scale, and especially when it comes to big data, you're got to be able to understand, decipher, look at trends. We talk about in the PMI way of thing, trend analysis. All of this is part of that, and there's certainly different techniques and different ways of doing it, but all of that is really included on the umbrella of data literacy. And from a prerequisite for business success, you have to be really looking at all angles, and that's why you really want to empower your team, educate your team on things where, when I have an electrician on my team versus a technician, they're going to be looking at completely different things, and you need to understand both of their points of view to ultimately get that holistic point of view, where you're not going to be able to see everything. So you have to rely on your teams to be able to help get that entire holistic picture of where your particular project, program, or anything is at from a business standpoint.
Exactly. And you correctly mentioned when, looking the same picture, same house, and people have different view. I see people going on the roof, they're trying to see something, and I'm looking the beautiful walls, picture, paint, so the tiles used, somebody used something else. They have microscope scope with them to see if termites are there. So it's the way, we use the data is so much, if you look at Amazon and, Facebook, and these people have so much data collected. How can you utilize that information, this data into the meaningful way, which can help the users as well as the shareholders, stakeholders to get the like expected benefit out of those. So having
That's right.
right skilled people can help you to extract the right information. Yeah, that's what we talk as a people. But we'll talk more about artificial intelligence that is totally based on data driven. If you have a good system, good artificial AI system, and you have good data or properly categorized and in the right way, then you can have great results.
That's right. And probably as we get into more of the discussion, but just to give you a little bit of idea, some of the one of the classes I've recently taken in last year in my MBA class was actually statistics, and it had specifically to do with big data. And one of the case studies that we did over, several weeks of the class was we took the real estate prices of Houston, Texas, and it is all sorted by, whether the square footage and the zip code and the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, all the different, pieces of data that goes into home and the prices and everything else. But you also have to, again, when you're coming gets into our next question, when it proceeds to governance, is making sure that understanding you might have in a huge data set, you might have some data that's a one-off or isn't really going to be within your average or your typical. You're going to have your outliers, so to speak, as they call it, where, let's face it, there's some of the data and it's done on purpose because, of course, garbage in, garbage out when it comes to data. If it's not accurate, it's going to skew your analysis, everything else. But when our job as students was that we all got the same set of data, but it's how you comb through it, how you sort it, and everything else. You're going to come out with very different answers. And being able to, okay, I'm looking at all these home prices and these homes. Well, okay, there's not going to be any place or real estate that has 0 bedrooms or 0 bathrooms, and that's likely because somebody didn't put the data in properly. So quite frankly, I'm going to toss that type of data out. So, again, but if you don't toss that data out, it's going to skew your results entirely. And so again, it's only as good as what you make it. And so being able to recognize those outliers and sort through that data is just as important.
Exactly. Very well. Now, the next question, why do data governance and data literacy go hand in hand?
Yeah, and I know I just got ahead of myself in that, from a governance standpoint, you really want to set those, and not only KPIs and whatever particular business that you're in, but again, just using common sense, as I just listed, there's no real estate that has 0 bedrooms and 0 bathrooms and 0 square feet and things like that. And again, it's, from a governance standpoint is we even have folks on staff that literally what they're doing all day is going through that type of stuff and sorting it so that our leadership has the absolute best information possible to be able to make those proper decisions as far as a business unit. And then not only that, being able to predict, or forecast your next quarter, which of course, when you're looking at a publicly traded company in the US, your New York Stock Exchange, things like that, all that is driven by data and the guidance that you're going to get. So, again, from a governance and data literacy standpoint, you're talking about, a company's, true existence is relying on these type of exercises and the data that you're going in. And quite frankly, when when the C-suite is making these, their earnings or quarterly earnings announcements, and they, of course, they give the forecast for the next. If they are given bad data and given that to potential investors and current investors, it's not good. So that's why it's of utmost importance to always be combing and sorting through your data and making sure what's good and what's not, and making sure that you give your senior leadership the most accurate information possible.
Exactly. And that's where how you interpret the data. And then, of course, you need to not understand their expectation, what they're looking for, what decision they're making. And you gave a good example, New York Stock Exchange, so much data is there, people buying, selling, companies are releasing the profit or whatever reports every month, every year, whatever it is. And based on that, you have to see the movement, some graphs, interpretation of those numbers, graphs that can tell you, okay, this is going to go up very fast, or maybe, there's a possibility downfall coming because of the past history. And
yeah, I mean, and that's the beautiful thing, just like you and I have talked about already, is with the different interpretations, where how often is it after a company announces its quarterly earnings, you have certain analysis, rated as a buy stock, some say hold, or some say sell, they're all interpreting that type of data in any which way. So when we're talking about this, of course, for our viewers that are going to be watching this, I want to kind of make some of these real world situations and understanding, because you don't even realize it at the end of the day, because you kind of just take it for granted. But then when you start talking about this discussion, you're like, okay, well, gosh, I never even realized it. All that data and how people use it to financial markets and all that good stuff. Our entire lives are surrounded by it. Sometimes you don't even realize it.
Exactly. I mean, because of 401k, whatever it is, I have to invest something. So I start looking and it start becoming more and more smarter, because, hey, first 2 days it goes up, and third day likely to go down. That's where the chance of buying, and then, then go up, and then, so you start the patterns there.
Yep.
Anyway, so it's hard, as you correctly mentioned, data and, the governance, very, very important. They talk to each other, because decisions are based on data. Yeah.
Yeah. Consistency is the key. And, setting a standard, as far as from a data standpoint, again, we're always going to come to different conclusions, but, if you're not really working off of the same data, or, one person wants to use the data in one way versus the other. I mean, certainly I'm all about looking at different perspectives, but to a certain extent, you also have to have at least a standard, to work off of, because then, you're not going to come out with these wildly different, sets of analysis that you have to be careful. And again, as you get higher up in the chain of command, it gets more and more difficult to understand or recognize some things, because by the time it gets up to the top, it better be a very finely tuned a piece of information or analysis. But recognize that as it continues to get sorted and filtered, and it ultimately gets to the top, there's been a lot of interpretations that have been done far below. So understanding that, being able to decipher that, and even maybe account for some standard deviations or errors, that's why they get paid the big dollars, to be able to look at those different trends and be able to accurately predict.
Exactly. So my next question is, how do you measure the success or impact of the initiative to foster a data culture within the organization? And are there specific KPIs you use to evaluate employee data literacy improvement?
So the first part of that, how do I measure success or impact the initiatives? First, I think it'll wildly be different depending on the industry that you're in.
Yeah.
That is first and foremost. So are there specific KPIs? That's going to be very difficult to across the board on all industries. But I think certainly your company is going to be looking at the standard ones of growth. You're going to be looking at your your return or ROIs on investments that you've made, the standard financial type stuff that is ultimately, whether a business is doing well or not. But, not only that is when I start looking into, okay, a company has a certain amount of debt. Well, why do they have that debt? You got to be able to look into that on their balance sheet and go, okay, well, they've acquired X amount of companies where, yeah, the balance sheet might not look as good right now, but based on the trend analysis, it could be where, by them buying that company, they've just opened up a whole new avenue of a new business unit. So again, being able to understand all that, it's very difficult to real standardize that. But of course, at the end of the day, businesses typically are not charities. And so, the financial ones are probably, from a KPI standpoint, are probably the most common ones. But across the industry, when you're looking at some of the different things, trends are obviously going to be wildly different. So with that being said, how do you measure success or impact of initiatives to foster a data culture within an organization? I think, being consistent with what we've talked about in last year's podcast, for me, I'm always trying to empower our people and making sure that, while we were all at the bottom of the chain of command at one time as well, and as we've moved up, we've certainly had people train us and help us look for different things along the way. And I think, again, that transparency, being as transparent as possible, and being able to teach folks, hey, as a project analyst or a project coordinator, hey, I recognize that you're looking, your responsibilities are this, but I want you to start looking at these type of trends and look at this data and see, how are we performing? Why are we being able to get this task done in this location in 4 days, but this other location, it's taking us, 20 days. Why is that? Is there certain country customs and traditions, or, being able to understand that, and not only that, being able to, especially when you're young in your career, you're just trying to survive in a lot of things, but being able to take that time to just give little nuggets to folks that are, hungry, trying to make a name for themselves, and being able to drop those little nuggets to let them run with it, not necessarily give them the answer, but kind of once in a while, I'm not saying throw them in the deep end and see if they can swim, but get their feet wet a little bit. And I think that's the best, where you start to plant those seeds and let them run with it, where ultimately that you see success from the folks that have worked for you before. And quite frankly, as a leader, that's the greatest feeling, is when you see folks that are succeeding and moving up and taking on more responsibility. So for me, measuring the success is really being able to have your entire team being in tune with what's going on, and be able to say, hey, we finished this facility in 10 days, but this exact facility, for example, when you're building, certain facilities that require a tremendous quantity of them, it's the exact same facility, but why is it taking us longer in this one? Did we mess something up? Understanding, as simple as that is, it's very powerful. And having everyone being able to take those lessons learned and being able to understand that and be able to get better and be more efficient in the next time they do it. I think really again, it ends up being in the bottom line from a KPI standpoint. You're much more financial. Your financials will be much more attractive by making everyone aware of, hey, we need to measure this and find ways to get better. It all comes together in the big picture. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that for the folks that are listening, yes, this data is important and understanding it, but please, please, please do not forget about your stakeholder engagement.
Yes.
At the end of the day, your customer needs to be happy, and making sure, there's going to be things, there's going to be bad trends, there's going to be different things that are going to affect things. But if you have great stakeholder engagement, and being at the end of the day, if data is even looking bad, but if you're setting the right expectation management and customer engagement, you're going to be able to get through those things. And so while we have all this different analysis and data, I'm still a firm believer that at the end of the day, it's making sure that you take care of the folks, whether it's your customer or even your own team. So I want to make that particular point very clear.
Definitely. You may have bad data or it's not favorable data. You probably think, okay, my customer is not going to be happy from this. But if you have been building relationship with them, so don't worry about this. This is a phase, and we know that this is a kind of trend we have been watching. That's okay. It's not a expected, loss, but yeah, we know this, and let's work on it and find better way of doing things.
That's right. And coming to them with the solution, like you just said. Yeah, it doesn't look good right now, but perfect example is what we would do on a particular facility. We had 12 facilities, and they're actually literally the same, copy and paste. So the first one always takes the longest because we're getting our measurements and everything else and kind of putting the puzzle together. And so we're writing all that down. And then what we do is we mass produce. So we had like 12 facilities. So once we get the first one down, we have all the different data that we've collected on the measurements. We're going to do this, that, and the other. And then all of a sudden, we mass produce the other 11 facilities. So while we're mass producing those 11 facilities, the data from a schedule standpoint doesn't look very good. But then all of a sudden, we've spent a week mass producing all these particular, materials. But then all of a sudden, that week that looks like we lost, all of a sudden the facilities are finishing in half the time because we've mass produced them, copy paste. It looks, all of a sudden what looked like we were behind, all of a sudden we're 3 weeks ahead now. So, and it's key to be able to explain that to your customer, because sometimes they're going to be like, you finished this in this particular facility in 10 days, but you haven't finished another one in 20. Why? And being able to explain that stuff and help them understand that, or again, address that with them and let them know that before it even happens. So then they're very much aware. It's a simple thing, but surprisingly, it can be, it gets lost in the mix sometime with the communication with your customer and helping them understand that. So when you're being able to communicate with them on a regular basis, it really makes life a lot easier for you as a project program or portfolio manager.
Exactly. All right. Moving on to the next question. Given the importance of data sharing and collaboration, how do you balance promoting collaboration while ensuring the security and privacy of the sensitive government data in large-scale public-private partnership programs?
It's extremely hard. I will say that, I think I'm getting to the point where I think I have so many different passwords. I've got I literally am getting to the point where I have a password book that I have to keep safe and stored away. And I'll even have whatever those passwords are, I'll have them, coded to where, it doesn't say like, hey, this is the login for this. I'll have them coded so that only I can remember. But it can be extremely difficult. But at the same point, there's a lot of great, software security and collaboration tools out there. But it can be very difficult at times, especially when you're talking about printing documents off. That's when it gets even more interesting in protecting those type of documents. So from a data sharing and collaboration standpoint, depending on the sensitivity of the documents or the subject matter in general, it can be very challenging, and it's to the point sometimes where from a classification standpoint, you can't have people remote parts of the world. They have to be in the same place, and they even have to go into a secure compartmentalized facility where that stuff is not even allowed outside of that particular facility. And so it can be extremely difficult, and especially when you're talking about a public-private partnership program, where again, something like the Giga projects in the Middle East here can be extremely difficult. And it's even more difficult from a cybersecurity standpoint, and everything else, to make sure that everything is kept as safe as possible. And of course, with cyber attacks and everything else, it's extremely difficult. I can't necessarily get into some of the specifics of the ways that we're able to protect data, but a lot of these companies nowadays, even your phones and different applications, the email aren't even available in some countries in the world. So there are ways around it, but at the same point, it's extremely difficult at times. So I know that's probably the greatest, longest non-answer you've ever heard, Dharam. But yeah, there's many different ways behind the scenes that it can be done, but sometimes you have to do it in code way if you got to take it out to to travel with it or to another country or whatever. You got to do it the old-fashioned secretive way as much as possible. So, but even the smallest of things, when you might get a nugget of information, it might not seem much, but in the grand scheme of things, folks that are trying to get your information, that can be pieces of the puzzle that they can easily put together. So everyone needs to do their part. I know typically in the U.S. defense world, every U.S. defense contractor, the U.S. government actually even puts out a training protecting information that it's vitally important. So there's different ways of doing it, but anyway, I think I've probably wasted enough time on that one. It's not easy, and especially in an interconnected world that we're in now.
Yeah, I mean, I know it. You are into this giga projects and all these things, so you know how important this is. And again, the cybersecurity and all those things are becoming more and more bigger threats. So how you stay secure, how you prevent the accessibility of these dirty-minded people is very important.
Absolutely, and it becomes harder and harder every year. And I met I was at the World Defense Show in Riyadh last week, and I met a gentleman. I think he is a U.S. government rated like top 50 ethical hacker in the world. I just shook his hand and just say, I will not do anything to upset you. Not that I have anything to worry about, but I mean, how do you even become, that title? I'm, let's just say I'm not that savvy, but it's impressive. I mean, a top 50 in the world ethical hacker is, talk about an accomplishment. I don't even know what that would entail. And to be honest with you, I'm not really sure I want to know.
No. I mean, hackers are there, but if you can understand, again, that's the data driven. If you can understand what's the next steps as a data protection company or something, you be ahead of the game as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was giggling. I'm sitting there going, that guy could walk into any company and say, here's my resume and this is what I want to get paid now. So talk about impressive. But yeah, it's amazing some of the folks you meet and understanding. Of course, you want that particular guy on your side, no doubt. And he certainly is able to, a person like that on your staff. I would probably just not only would he be doing things for our customers, but as a side hustle, I'd ask him to try and always be poking and prodding our own systems to find vulnerability, because that's the only way you're going to be able to know that your own company's is as safe as possible. So truly, I know most militaries in the world usually even do that. They'll have their own special forces kind of poke and prod in certain areas to make sure they're as secure as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's the drilling in the internal system. If the real hackers come, at least you know how protected we are.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. So, what familiar challenges are encountered in promoting data literacy within an organization, and what strategies have been most effective in overcoming these challenges?
I think the biggest challenge is some folks, and again, it's of course going to depend on the industry you're in, but I'm going to go with some of ours in the, when you have electricians and technicians, they're very good at what they do. And some of them just literally want to go and read the drawings, get it done, make it happen. And that's it. That's just what they do. And they don't want to do, they don't want to get into, into the new stuff and being able to understand, hey, how can we, have them be a part of the data. Sometimes they want to do that. I very rarely does that come about, but always the resistance to change. Everyone, we're all guilty of it. There's some things that we just like a certain way. I think probably the older we get more set in our ways and go, another change. But that's probably the biggest challenge. Now, I would say from a leadership perspective, that is where you really, from being a leader, is how you're going to be able to overcome the resistance to change, and being able to sell it properly, and not just sell it, as a disingenuous way, but hey, this is how we're going to be able to get better. Number one, and maybe you tie a performance bonus type thing to it as just one idea, or hey, if we can get this, if we're able to get a certain task done with a certain amount of time, I'll buy a steak dinner or whatever it might be. Find some ways to rewards folks to really kind of go above and beyond. And again, it's all about being able to uplift your team and being able to inspire them to want more. And so it's not just data literacy, it's just in anything you do, but as a leader, and a good solid leader, when they come to you and be able to drop those little nuggets to you of, hey, I want you to pay attention to this, how are we doing here? Being able to see someone that not only is going to do the task, but you've kind of given them that little nugget to be able to see if they want to run with it. Like, hey, that person, my boss told me to look at this. It's fascinating. I see that, but then I started looking into X, Y, and Z, and we're not doing too well over there. And so all of a sudden they take that and run with it, and as I call it, running down the rabbit hole, so to speak. And as a younger person, I did that all the time, where all of a sudden, hey, I want to understand the ins and outs of my customer and my end user, and understanding organizational charts and the different rankings. You start getting into all that, you have such a bigger picture of everything, and ultimately everybody wants to know the bigger picture anyway. So being able to help them, not only just tell them, but help them understand it is key for growth for everyone within your team.
Perfect. Great. Good stuff. Thank you. How can you create data-driven culture in your organization to ensure it starts to grow within data literacy and progresses with the data revolution?
Well, I think as we kind of just said with that answer, again, at the end of the day, it comes down to your leadership style and being able to inspire your team for the most part. And some of this is as a leader, sometimes too much data makes things not good, and so being able to filter that. I'm not saying that you want to ignore something, but being able to filter what your team needs to look at, and being able to filter the things that aren't going to be as relevant, or something that you and your superiors are paying more attention to. I think because sometimes folks can get overwhelmed, especially when it comes to this big data stuff. And so being able to keep it simple sometimes, and being able to give them specifics to look at and not overwhelm them. I think because if you overwhelm them, they're just going to shut down and not care about any of it. I think that's being able to give them just enough to, let them chew on it, but don't let them get overwhelmed. I think that is probably the key to really make sure that the data literacy grows within your organization.
Small pieces by pieces, and let them learn and grow.
Yep.
Okay, good. What immediate and long-term strategies should our company employ to navigate impact of generative AI on efficiency, competitiveness, and business model adaptation?
Well, I know our own company is definitely taking an aggressive approach to some of these things, and being able to do some amazing things for our customers. And not only that, is finding ways to where AI can help you increase your win percentage of a prospective new opportunity for your company. Being able to use that in whatever way possible. I recognize each industry is much different, but we're certainly looking at that. And as you said within the question, the competitiveness and the efficiencies within your business model, there's a lot of things that can be used where it's going to increase your opportunity and just be able to win. I think immediate and long-term strategy is embracing the change, being able to find ways and being creative, and really empowering your business development people to be able to collaborate with different companies that maybe even sometimes one that my company is great with. Even some of our best partners happen to be our competitors in a lot of different contract opportunities. And so being able to build those relationships and having that humility, number one, to be able to say, we're not very good in this, but this particular company is very good in that. Well, they're not very good in something that we're very strong at. So all of a sudden that competitor becomes a great partnership where you leverage each other's strengths to be able to ultimately deliver for a customer that, is asking for a very niche type a solution or a service. So again, I think having that, embracing it and being able to have an honest look in the mirror and embrace your strengths,
yep,
and find ways to shore up your weaknesses, and even within the data, and certainly some of these big companies, you're seeing a lot of it right now where companies are getting bought up that have niche markets or a set of customers that these others don't, and they're buying them up. You see that it's very cyclical, of course, but you're seeing that a lot, and recognizing that, hey, we have a core business here, but if we were to able to buy this, it really would expand that core business into a lot of different things. So, and it's constantly moving. So if you stop, that's when you lose everything. So you have to embrace it and keep moving forward.
Yeah. Keep learning, keep knowing, and I like the idea of collaboration with your competitors, especially when you have some strength, they have some strength, and why not we, club together and present our own, one big proposal, and chance of winning will be higher. You have a share, you have a share. It's of, and that's where it is. That's where the competitiveness, again, all driven from data.
That's right.
Yeah, good. Which data literacy skills or competencies are essential for program and portfolio managers to enhance their adept handling of integrated data sets for informed decision-making and problem-solving?
The data literacy skills and competencies, number one, getting back to even what PMI, your trend analysis, being able to look at your financials and performance, operations, all those different things. I think those are still your core things you have to look at, because at the end of the day, if those things are not green on your traffic light dashboard, you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
So while looking at all of that, still staying true to the core principles, but certainly finding little niches. And when I was playing my college football days, is the difference between winning and losing on the football field is about that much. It's not, it is very thin. It's razor thin. And so where everybody's going to be looking at the core competencies, really finding something within where it might just be where you're able to shave 2-3 days off of a specific task. When you're looking at things like that and you're in a very competitive market, that 2 or 3 days makes a world of difference. And those little things, even in my college football days, little things turn into big things later. And so if you're able to find a way to just get better every day, win the day, as we say, win the day, and you keep stacking up wins every day, all of a sudden you're going to look back 6 months from now and go, we've come a long way.
Yeah.
And it's just finding that little bit every day. And so, as a program portfolio manager, those little things, especially when you're in a program or a portfolio, are the difference. And those little things are going to turn into great financial success. It's going to create great customer relations and delivering on time or early. I think at the end of the day, those are Those are really the core ones that are going to be able to still help you with your decision making and problem solving. And I can't stress enough that customer and stakeholder engagement will always get you out of big problems. And so having that relationship is to the core. I personally is what I believe is the most important of all of them. They're all important, but customer relationships are the most in my successes.
You said this again and again. I can see how this the stakeholder engagement was useful in some of my programs, a project which I did, and exactly same work happening in the organization. One for one part of the bank, I was responsible for other part of the bank. It's a merger of two banks, AML, and anti-money laundering for the bank, and. When I was given this program, it was a red program, and the person who hired me was the project manager, program manager for the other part. Anyway, so I spent a lot of time in building relationship. I'm working with 13 different teams within the organization. I never met them and I never saw them, but I wanted to build relationship with them. Yes, the fix is very small, but in a interpretation, how the integration works and how this and how the testing is done. That's what I'm working with them. So on the implementation night, there was a big hall, hundreds of people in the room. That project manager, and lots of shouting, this and that happening, people running around to get the fixes done. And I'm sitting outside of that room, big room. I'm the only person that, I didn't put the lights on as well. I just myself, I used to waste time. And I'm just looking and talking to people, how things going, literally like that. And checking my email, checking internet, all going so smoothly. And it gone like a dream. And, and that's, I do look back and say, why this was two different things. The other project managers, they can be other complexities, but how you work with your stakeholder, how you understand them, they are keeping you informed, you're keeping, that two-way traffic, that's all matters. Huge difference from a chaotic projects versus a very streamlined or a successful projects as a dream project.
Yeah, and that engagement and relationship certainly is not going to show up in your data literacy type stuff, but at the end of the day, it drives your data. And so again, it all comes together. It's all important, but the relationships, at least in my eyes, are really some of the most crucial things that you can have as a program project portfolio manager.
Yeah. All right. The more things you change, the more they stay the same. As a program manager, do you anticipate drastic change in AI transformation in organization?
Well, at the end of the day, as we just talked about, the core principles are still always going to be there, in my opinion. The soft skills, as we become more of a machine generated type society, as a leader, the soft skills are going to be the most important, which obviously is your customer engagement and relationships. Do you anticipate drastic changes? I think you have to. I think there will be, but to a certain extent, of course, there's going to always be core principles. And at the end of the day, when COVID happened and, everybody moved to Zoom or Teams or whatever, and folks were going, hey, we're saving a bunch of money with less travel and people are working from home. We don't have to have office environments and everything else. But, at the end of the day, nothing can replace being able to sit across the table from someone face to face, build that relationship, understanding, you gain an understanding to where it creates levels of trust that you will never, ever get on a Zoom or Teams meeting. It just is not there. So there's always going to be a people factor that at the end of the day truly is the most important, I believe. But with this AI and these new technologies, there's no doubt is going to create some pretty drastic changes. I mean, you think about, who could have predicted a thing such as Amazon? It started out as number one, just a book, a book seller online, and now it's the beast that it is. And I remember when Google first came along. I remember the days of Yahoo and Lycos and America Online, and Google literally took it over, and now you see Google and many different things. It's fascinating to see, or the Netflixes of the world. We always talk about it. Blockbuster Video had a chance to buy them when at very cheap, considering back then, and now Blockbuster is no more. So it's fascinating to see. I think there definitely is going to be always drastic transformations, but at the end of the day, those people and relationships I still rule the day, in my opinion.
Yeah. You give good examples, Blockbuster, Netflix, how they could have been different way, but now Blockbuster gone and Netflix, and how the changes are happening. And now, as you also mentioned earlier, like, different people do differently. Same thing, changes are happening. We know that the data is, AI. Some people may say AI is an enemy for them because their jobs are going. But say, okay, my job is going, but I can be part of this big wave. How I'm using this
Right.
information, how I'm going to use the data can make me more likable person, more employable person than worrying about my job.
That's right. How can I utilize this technology to leverage my skills to, ultimately be more successful? There's always a way in every type of situation, a way to better yourself and, quite frankly, be an industry leader. Jeff Bezos did that from his garage, or a Bill Gates. Look how he changed the world with Microsoft. I mean, they did that from a college dorm rooms, Facebook. There's been some pretty amazing things that have been done in very small garages and dorm rooms in college.
Yeah, and not to forget about Airbnb and the Uber and a few other names which have from nothing to big players.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and look, and we can keep talking about this topic forever, but it's very important, as we know, the data literacy and the artificial intelligence, how, and everybody see the same, but how you want to use it for your own benefit, learn from that, be ready for any change. Changes are happening, and anticipating what's about to happen, the competitors, what competitors are about to do based on their past experiences, how the stock market going to go up and down. If you keep an eye on these different numbers, you can be ahead of game, and you can be, what do you say, Bill Gates or Jack and all those big names we're talking here. Bill, the friend, what's his name? I'm looking at his picture now. It's not coming to my mind. I don't know this guy. The SpaceX.
Oh, Elon
Elon
Musk.
Musk. So from, he's not coming from a billionaire family. He just gone from nothing to the number one, the richest man in the world. How this happened? Of course, some smarter analytics, data, keep looking data, what's happening, what I can do, what should I do?
I mean, yeah, you talk about some brilliant people being able to, the space launch, SpaceX, where all of a sudden being able to take the rocket boosters that launch the shuttles to space, how they can free fall from the edge of the Earth's atmosphere, free fall, and then within maybe 1,000 feet of coming back to Earth, they reignite and land on a launch pad to be able to be reused before. Where do you even start with that? How do you even? I mean, that is just absolutely mind blowing. So that's that's the type of stuff where there's some brilliant people out there that are doing some amazing things.
Exactly, and it's always there. We just have to see differently. What he was able to see, his technician able to do. Okay, there's a possibility of doing this. How otherwise we're losing those big, investment into space, and we have to worry about cleaning the mess. I don't know in future, but you can bring it back and you reuse them, and we can have tourism, space tourism.
Much more cost efficient. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Thank you very much, Justin. It was great talking with you. Great topic, and your insightfulness of the thought process you have in your mind, how you drive the data into a meaningful sentence or meaningful information. That's a great gift to you.
Much appreciated. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you very much, and I will see you next time. after a number of your country visit. I know you have planned for another 50 visit between now and next time, but you're always there. And thank you for coming back again.